All right, welcome to Accelerated Math. We're looking at solving quadratic equations where you have an integer answer. And what we mean by integer is positive and negative whole numbers. You notice there are no decimals in this, no fractions. All right, so we're going to start off. I want you to notice, first of all, we're looking at quadratic equations. They have x squareds in them and x's. If it just had x's in it, or a single variable, we could actually just solve it the traditional method, minus 72 from both sides, and doing the opposite operations and the both sides kind of rule, and we would solve it. But because it has both an x squared and an x in it, it is quadratic and it takes a different approach. All right, and let's see what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're going to take the approach of factoring it into two things that multiply to give this. All right, and we're going to start by labeling a, b, c values. And when we do this, we're going to use this thing called the diamond, where we have the B, the basement is going down here, and the attic and ceiling, just a nice way to remember it, A times C is going to go up here. So A is the coefficient in front of the x squared term. So 1 times 72 is 72, and the B, the basement, is negative 17. All right, and what we're doing is we're thinking of numbers here that multiply to give 72 and add to give negative 17. And 8 times 9 gives 72, but it doesn't add to negative 17, so we got to make them both negative. So what we're doing from that is we're pulling those numbers into these binomials, x minus 8 and x minus 9, and it's equal to 0, just as we had over here. All right. Now, so we have factored this. This is the same basic thing. If you multiplied this back, you would get this original expression. But the power of this is that we're saying this times this gives me 0. Well, when you say some number times some other number equals 0, then what you're saying is either this number has to be 0 or this number has to be 0. So what we're going to do is use that, what they call zero product property, to figure this out. And come up with what number would make that true. So I got x minus 8 equals 0, or x minus 9 equals 0. And what I'm going to do is solve these separate little equations, because they're very simple now. Plus 8 to both sides, plus 8. I got x equals 8. And then I'm going to do plus 9 to both sides. And I got x equals 9. All right, so those are my two answers, and if you look up here, 8 and 9, those are there. I also want you to notice that negative 8 and negative 9 are there. They're trying to fool us, not really like a tricky standpoint, but they know that some people are going to go straight from here, this negative 8, negative 9, and say, oh, that's my answer. No, that's not your answer. That's what populates these binomials, and that's what splits into two equations. You solve each equation to find out how it's going to come out to 0. If you were to take these numbers and plug them back into here, each one would make this statement true, and that's what we're looking for. Take a look at another one. I included this one because I wanted you to see that when there's no number in front of this x value, that it's an understood 1. That one's also negative. So basement down here, negative 1. Attic, ceiling up here, this is a 1 also. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. Now, two things that multiply to give negative 6, but add to 1. 3 and 2, with the 3 being negative. And then, of course, we're going to use that to populate these two binomials, remembering that it's equal to 0. So it's x minus 3 and x plus 2 equals 0. Two things multiplied to give 0. Well, either this one has to be 0, x minus 3 has to be 0, or x plus 2 has to be 0. And if that's true, then we can solve each one of those equations by just opposite operations, doing it to both sides, and it comes out nice and simple. And you can, certainly just kind of look at these things and kind of figure out what those answers are. Most people would do that. Negative 2 and positive 3. Negative 2 and positive 3, so it's C. All right, moving right along. This one is missing, it's got the a value, the x squared term, the 1 in front of it. It's got the b value, but no c value. Some people are going to look at this and go, well, you know what, x squared plus 6x equals 0. I can see that there's a common factor in that. That's x, and I'm just going to factor that out, do kind of distributive property in reverse. We're factoring it. Divide both of those terms by x, you get x plus 6, and then they're going to take it from there. Other people are going to say, well, you know what, I'm going to modify this. If it's x squared plus 6x, but it had no c value, I'm just going to put plus 0 there, and that's fair. A, B, and C. Some people really like this tool. The basement is 6. The a times c is 0. So what two numbers multiply to give 0 and add to give 6 are 0 and 6. So we get x plus 0 and x plus 6 equals 0. And then we can split and solve those. But I want you to notice that it's the same. Okay, x plus 0 is x. Okay, so x, to make this come out to 0, x would have to be 0. And to make this one come out to 0, this binomial right here, x would have to be negative 6. So negative 6 and 0. All right, one more. Let's take a look at this one. Not in standard form, not set to 0 yet, so I need to do that, and I can look for a GCF and factor in whatever tool I want to do. I'm going to start by subtracting 9x from both sides. Sorry about that. Subtract 9x from both sides, and I get 0 over here. It's okay to have 0 on that side. X squared minus 9x. I'm trying to get it in that standard form, and since there's no c value, I'm just going to put plus 0 there. There's my a, b, and c. If you feel more comfortable throwing the equals 0 on this side, then do it. I think that's called the reflexive property of equality. Two things equal, you can flip them around. Basement and a times c is 0, so we got 0 and negative 9 that multiply to give 0 and add to negative 9. So that's going to turn our binomials into x plus 0 and x minus 9 equals 0. We're going to split those up into x plus 0 equals 0 and x minus 9 equals 0, and then continue to solve. Here, I mean, there's nothing to solve. Plus 0 is that same thing, so x is equal to 0. And here I'm just going to do plus 9 to both sides, and x equals 9, so it's 9 and 0. Alrighty, have fun with that. I don't think I have any more for you. I don't. Okay. Go on to your homework. Thank you. Bye.